good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's episode of Roundabout Sports presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. Thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. I am the maestro, Jeremy Carp, and alongside me is the hardest working man in umpiring and a lot better than Angel Hernandez, the one, the only, Hollywood James Knox. James, how you doing this evening?
Doing well, my man. I hope you're staying warm, and hopefully this show will bring the heat.
Absolutely. And also, folks, be sure to tune in to the Strike Zone, to Blues Notes, and the Fourth Period, all hosted by James. And James, we got a new Strike Zone tomorrow?
Yeah, we do. And we will actually have Taylor Michelle Coleman's going to join me tomorrow night on the Strike Zone. Special start time of 6 p.m. We're going to go a little earlier, even though the Blues play at 8 tomorrow night, so we can spend some time with her. I'm going to kind of build off of your interview with her last weekend, and if people didn't see that, how dare you go back and watch it. And so we're going to have her tomorrow night, and then we'll preview the Blues Coyotes game, which could be the worst hockey game of the year, to be honest with you.
It just, the sound of it sounds like it's a catastrophe. And yes, thank you all who tuned into last week's Roundabout Sports. Made it the highest viewed episode yet. And that spans 3 seasons. Actually, well, of this season definitely is the highest viewed. Definitely one of the highest all time. So thank you all so much. Thank you again to Taylor Michelle Coleman for doing her exclusive interview. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to it tomorrow night with you, James. So we got a lot to talk about, and I always appreciate it when my dad tunes in for the evening. It's always great to see.
Yes, Padre joining us tonight.
Yes, Padres joining us. So we got a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking about the NFL playoffs, the continuing adventures, and the adventures that will not include the Buffalo Bills heading into the AFC Championship because the Cincinnati Bengals clawed the hell out of those Bison.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about the AFC and NFC Championship. We're going to preview both those games. We'll recap the divisional round, which, not going to lie, some pretty crappy games.
I think the best game of the weekend may have been the first one, to be honest with you. The game between the Jaguars and the Chiefs.
It was definitely the best one to me.
And the Jags shot themselves in the foot, or else they may have beaten Kansas City. I know that we talk about the Patrick Mahomes injury and stuff and him missing, but I mean even Chad Henne. Wow.
Yeah, well,
he comes in and drives Kansas City 98 yards down the field, which would be really easy to do since the Jaguars decided not to cover Travis Kelce. But we talk about that, but when you have, Agnew fumbles going into the end zone and it was a non-contact fumble. So, if he scores there, I think you've got a different football game. But I think the Jaguars are going nowhere. They're not going anywhere. They're going to only get better. And that's a team that, there's a lot of potential there if if Doug Peterson can keep them moving upward.
Absolutely. And I also want to make a quick note here. The Musial Awards presented by Maryville University will air a special encore presentation in St. Louis. It'll be this Saturday, January 28th at 7 p.m. Be sure to tune in on KSDK Channel 5. So I wanted to throw that out there. Musial Awards, always a pleasure to see on TV, and looking forward to going there this year.
Yeah, for sure.
So make sure, James, get your butt up in town when that happens. So
that would mean I would have to take a weekend off from officiating. I'll see what I can do.
I know, right?
I was thinking the same thing. Josh says that's Royal Rumble time.
Yeah, and that's another thing we're going to have to talk about tonight, folks. We're going to be talking about the Royal Rumble that is this Saturday as well, and there's some interesting things going on. Raw just celebrated its 30th anniversary, which holy crap.
Royal Rumble is my favorite pay-per-view of the year because I love the surprises, and I think this year we're going to see more surprises than we've seen in a long time. I love this. So. I've told everybody, if you send me anything that has any spoiler in it, you're getting clotheslined. It's that simple.
Yeah, pretty much.
I will beat you.
It's as simple as that. But first, we're going to kick it off with talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, for those that don't know, for Interstate 70 Sports Media, I do a article series called the Cooperstown Case, where I take a lot of former Cardinal players and I evaluate their cases and figure out as to why they're not in the Baseball Hall of Fame and if they should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I leave it up to you, the audience, to make that determining factor. Well, I am personally proud to say that for 3 of the athletes I have done an article on, they made the Hall of Fame. First one was Ted Simmons.
My God, you were right.
Then Larry Walker, or vice versa. Larry Walker, Ted Simmons. And now, for the third player that I was right about, welcome to the Baseball Hall of Fame to the one and only Scott Rolen. Man, I wish I had an applause sound effect, so I'm just going to go like this, because congratulations to the All-Star, to the... Oh, uh-oh.
I thought
we had, now, to be fair, Josh, quick side note, it did have 40 one year.
Yeah, it did. But Scott, you're right, and I'm just teasing you about being right. This is kind of an inside joke, because Jeremy always gets mad because I'm the one that's usually right all the time. Of course, I am an umpire. I'm an umpire. I'm always right.
And yet you're going to be replaced by robots. How does that make you feel?
Anyway, but so I told you a really cool Scott Rolen story in our messenger earlier. So if you're Scott Rolen he was born in Evansville, Indiana. He makes his home in Jasper, Indiana, which is about an hour northeast of Evansville. And so Scott donated $3.5 million to build a baseball and softball complex in Jasper, and it's a gorgeous complex. We've called many tournaments there, and so we were there for the ribbon cutting. And Scott, always intense, and you can find any interview with any of his teammates and they say the same thing. He's always intense. And so he does the ribbon cutting, and I get to shake his hand, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm a huge Cardinals fan." He looks at me, says thanks, and walks away. I mean, he's just very stoic. Like, I think he was the kind of person that was not big on personal accomplishments or personal achievements, similar to a Paul Goldschmidt. Very quiet, when it comes to the media and stuff like that and how he plays the game. But great guy, and very much so deserving. I thought that when I saw it come across that he had been elected into the Hall of Fame, my first sentiment was it's about damn time.
Well, yeah, and, people are going to make a lot, and this is what we're going to delve into first here, folks. And be sure to comment and let us know if you think Scott Rolen was deserving of being in the Hall of Fame. Now, I'm going to tell you why, based off some of what I said in my old article that actually I wrote in May of 2001. So he was on the ballot, but he had not gotten. And hey, Christopher Miles, our lovely dear friend, who had a successful debut of Issues with Wrestling.
Everybody's favorite heel referee. I know he loves it when I say that.
Yeah, and he says he's absolutely deserving as well. And Josh says too many people sleep on Scott Rolen. So, yeah, why is he heading to the Hall of Fame? Well, this is my thing. All right, so I put over the past 4 ballots, spanning from 2018 to 2021, this is how his ballots percentages went. First year was 10.2%, then 17.2%, then 35.3%. In 2021, it was 52.9%. It just kept. Yep, he's not happy.
I told you.
It kept going up. And he has the 9th best wins above replacement in baseball history at his position, with a 70.1. 7 of the 8 players with a higher WAR are already in Cooperstown. The only one that isn't is a guy who I also feel is going to go in the Hall of Fame, that being Adrian Beltre. Only reason he's not in yet is he's not eligible yet. Next year is his first year of eligibility for being on the ballot. So you look at Scott Rolen, and I mean, I get it. There's a lot of issues with his injuries history. Um, and you know what? And I made actually a thing as far as WAR for a second. Let me correct myself. So when it's the ninth best, that's actually in history, not just
Yeah.
at position. So I'm gonna list the guys, some of the guys at each position, the best at each position. So at catcher, it's Joe Mauer. At first base, it's Willie McCovey. At second base, it's Roberto Alomar. At shortstop, it's Pee Wee Reese. Rollins at third. Willie Stargell's at left. Richie Ashburn is at center. And Tony Gwynn is in right. Now, James, you're the guy that's more familiar as far as the analytics and everything. Explain to those tuning in what exactly wins above replacement means as to why this is significant.
Okay, so the WAR stat, wins above replacement, is simply how many wins you get with him in the lineup versus somebody who is an average, quote unquote, average player at that position or a replacement player. So, I'm trying to think if you were to do it this way, Rolen versus say maybe a Scott Spezio, and oddly enough, they played on the same team, and when Rolen wasn't in the lineup, that was the replacement at third. So
I love Scott Spezio.
Right. And so Rolen is 70 wins better than, say, having a Scott Spezio in the lineup. And that's no knock on Spees, because Spees, without him and the RBI triple, in against the Mets, who knows if you win that series.
Exactly.
But anyway, so that's kind of what the wins above replacement is. And looking at his other sabermetric numbers, 364. His slash line is 364, 490, and 855. His OPS plus, with 100 being average, was 122 for his career. This is including the years after 2005, in which he had the collision with Hee-Seop Choi that injured his shoulder. I think a lot of us forget that was kind of like, that was a big dip in his career, but yet he still continued to battle and to do everything it took to get ready for every game, even having that shoulder injury. He never wanted to come out, which caused some chemistry issues between him and TLR in 2006. And then he hits a huge home run against the Mets to actually help you win that series. So, I mean, that's why I said to you that my first sentiment was it's about time. When it comes to third basemen that are Hall of Famers, we talk about Mike Schmidt, we talk about Brooks Robinson. Scott Rolen is definitely and should be, and thankfully now is, in that conversation. And we've been spoiled in St. Louis. We've had great third basemen, Scott Rolen, and now you're seeing another Scott Rolen-esque player in Nolan Arenado.
Well, Nolan Arenado is the Scott Rolen of this generation. And, I want to use some anecdotes here that I found that basically do a great job in describing Nolan Arenado, or not Nolan Arenado, that describes Scott Rolen and what he meant in his era. So we're going to start simply with Mike Schmidt, one of the all-time greatest third basemen, one of the greatest at his position, one of the greatest sluggers. And he was also a 10-time Gold Glove winner. So in 2004, he said, Rolen's better than me. So, and no, we're not talking about better than me personally, but obviously that's the given. Then we go to Dusty Baker, who was the manager for Scott Rolen. He was with the Reds. Quote, he has one of the truest throws to first I've ever seen. Terry Francona, his manager with the Phillies, when asked if Rolen could play shortstop, he said, quote, he's covering short now. And finally, we have Tony La Russa, obviously his manager with the Cardinals and where he's very renowned at. He called Rolen the best defensive third baseman he had ever seen. Quote, I told him once my happiest day would be if there's a game where 27 ground balls get to third. He said that in 2002. The way he plays that position, the way he runs the bases, the way he takes his at-bats, he's a complete player. And that's so 100% true. And, and I put this in my Cooperstown case article that the numbers are not ecstatic. They're not flashy. He had 316 home runs. He had 1,200 plus RBIs. He had just over 2,000 hits, and he had a 281 average. A 7-time All-Star and an 8-time Gold Glove Award winner. Those are all great stats, but I understand it's not the elite upper echelon stat. But this is the thing. This is how I look at it. See, one of the anti-Rolen arguments is that his only top 10 MVP finish came in 2004 when he finished in 4th place and the Cardinals were unstoppable until a team from Boston showed up. Yeah. Well, the thing of it is, Rolen was named Rookie of the Year in the National League in 1997. Yep. And the teams in Philadelphia were awful. The teams he was with on the Cardinals were phenomenal. Like, the Phillies averaged 91 losses on teams Rolen was on. And it wasn't because of Rolen. But because of that, he didn't get good recognition early on. Because obviously it's easier to look at good players on great teams as opposed to great players on bad teams. And defense has always also been the underappreciated art of baseball. And, of course, that's where Scott Rolen excelled at more than anybody of his time. And on top of that, he was a much better defender than he was, or a fielder than he was a hitter. And considering how well he hit, that's saying something. Because what the stats I just showed you and said to you are not bad stats.
Right.
It's just, and Josh brings it up perfectly. So Scott Rolen was a silent assassin on the field. You didn't always hear about him, but he could hurt you. He was the least recognizable face of the MV3, but at the same time, you could say he was he was just as imperative as the other two. Without one, the other two struggle. Like, you don't get to the 2004 World Series without Jim Edmonds fielding and Scott Rolen's hitting. It wasn't the Albert Pujols show. That's the thing. Everybody played their way, basically. Yeah. Played their way, did their job. And Scott Rolen, is definitely just that name of, I get it. People are going to say he's from the Hall of Very Great. I get that, because he's not up there with the likes of Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Johnny Bench, but at the end of the day, neither is guys like Tim Raines, Wade Boggs, Harold Baines, and yeah, Josh brings up another great underrated star, Edgar Renteria, But the way I see it, James, Scott Rolen deserves to be in the Hall of Fame because he played effective. He was a champion. He was a huge difference maker on every team he was on. You just had to put the right supporting cast around him.
Right.
And with the Cardinals, that's what he had.
Yeah. Edgar Renteria, great player, but will never, ever be a Hall of Famer.
He won the World Series once.
Well, and go back, in '97, he actually had the game-winning hit to beat the Indians when he was with the Marlins. But, Rolen, he won Rookie of the Year. He was a 7-time All-Star. He was an 8-time Gold Glove. He won the World Series in 2006, and he was a Silver Slugger in his best offensive year, which was 2002, the year he got traded to the Cardinals from Philadelphia for Bud Smith. Look at that name. But, and the funny thing is like we look at the total in
Polanco.
Polanco win as well.
Well, the trade was I had this. It said they traded Rolen and Doug Nickel to the Cardinals for Placido Polanco, Mike Timlin, and Bud Smith.
Yep. So I want to throw some. But remember, he was a Silver Slugger winner in 2002. He won that with a 266 batting average. That would be unheard of in today's game.
Yeah, you got that right.
So, I mean, and actually, so he wins it with a 266 batting average. His slash line that year was 357, 503, 860. So the OPS was one of the best of his career. He had an OPS plus of 129 and an All-Star. He won the Gold Glove that year and was a Silver Slugger in the year that the Cardinals traded for him. So, and that was the year that the Cardinals got beat by the Giants in the NLCS, and then that was the year that the Rally Monkey made his appearance and the Angels won the World Series. So, but. Yeah, I just he has always been overlooked, and with Rolen now being elected into the Hall of Fame, he's now only the 19th third baseman to be inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame.
I believe that's the fewest of any position.
You would be correct. You would be correct, and we talked about it earlier that as part of the MV3, it's kind of like if Rolen struggled. The other two, picked him up, but without that kind of protection in the lineup, none of them have the kind of success that they had when they were together and wearing the birds on the bat.
No, absolutely. The MV3 is what got the Cardinals where they were at and why they were so dominant for that period of time in the 2000s. And it was his sixth year on the ballot. So let's not act like he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. And players need to be named on at least 75% of the votes to be elected. And right. he honestly cut it close. He was named on 76.3% of the ballots. So you
he'll be
at,
and he'll be the only player elected into the Hall of Fame this year.
As far as right.
As far as the BBWAA says.
Well, and then I actually have a list of players who will no longer, starting next year, will no longer be on the Hall of Fame ballot. And there's a couple on here that are really sad to hear that they won't. Bronson Arroyo.
He was a better guitar player.
Yeah.
Good knuckleballer.
Yeah. Winning is winning by an inch or a mile. It's just as much, But anyway, John Lackey.
Man, that's borderline.
That's hard. That hurts because he didn't get a fair enough shot. Because he's one of the few guys in history to beat every active MLB team at the time of his pitching. Mike Napoli, Hudson Street, Matt Cain. Now, keep in mind, these guys either got one vote, and now I'm getting into the guys that got 0 votes this year. So Matt Cain got 0. Jacoby Ellsbury, 0 votes. Andre Ethier, 0 votes. J.J. Hardy, 0. Johnny Peralta, 0. Jared Weaver, and Jason Worth, all got no votes at all. Yeah, they got nothing. And I am looking to try to find, and I know, here we go. I found it. So, if I remember, well, maybe I did. I was looking for the list for all of the ballots because I do know. There we go. Okay. Manny Ramirez, one of the notable names that people were hoping to get in. His went up, but it only went up to 33%. Todd Helton fell short of the Hall of Fame by just 11 votes. And so here we go. All right, I found it for the people that made it, other than the ones that fell off the ballot. Okay, so we got Todd Helton. He finished second with 72%. Billy Wagner finished with 68%. Andrew Jones, 58%. Gary Sheffield, 55%. Carlos Beltran, 46.5%. Jeff Kent, who a lot of people were comparing to Rolen, and a lot of people felt he should have been on over Scott Rolen, 46.5 as well. Here's perhaps, look, people are going to hate me, but I'm not going to lie. This is one of the biggest figures in baseball history. Alex Rodriguez, And hate him, love him, whatever you want. I feel in a way he should be. But 35.7% of the votes. Ramirez, 33%. Omar Vizquel, who I think should be in, 19%. Andy Pettit, 17%. Bobby Abreu, Jimmy Rollins, Mark Burley. These are players that still stayed on the – Torrey Hunter even stayed on the ballot for next year with 6.9%. And our local friend Mark Burley stayed on with 10.8%. So I look at these guys, James, and, there is a lot of guys on that list where if you did induct them, it would be the Hall of Very Good.
Yeah.
A lot of names there should not be. I see out of all of them, I'm torn on A-Rod because he is one of the most marketable and significant figures of all time in baseball. But, of course, so much controversy. So much controversy. Because we're not even talking about steroids on top of everything else.
I mean, if we were worried about controversy in the Hall of Fame, there are a lot of guys that from the 70s and 80s and even earlier than that wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I like A-Rod. I have no problem with him at all being in the Hall of Fame. But you can't tell the story of baseball or the history of baseball without A-Rod, without McGwire, without Sosa, without Bonds, without all those guys.
What you're going to do is, the problem is that because of the way society is now, you can hide away those stories. That's the thing. Let me tell you something. If Willie Stargell wasn't on the ballot yet, or he was like on a Veterans Committee thing nowadays, he ain't getting in the Hall of Fame because everything that he was tied to with the drug trials and everything.
Yeah. It's the same thing with Joe DiMaggio and Babe Ruth and how they were towards women and very abusive. I mean, it's like...
Joe DiMaggio was... Oh, God. Don't get me
wrong. Well...
And okay, perfect example, and everyone's going to, probably bash me for this one, too. Ty Cobb.
Yep.
I know a lot of what he was accused of doing was discredited, but just the fact that it's there, especially these days, is enough to get someone, canceled, thrown out,
right.
Anything. So the way I look at it is A-Rod has an even harder chance to get in because of the time period in which he's on the ballot.
We have to start judging this by on-field ability and on-field numbers. I'm sick and tired of the idea of what they did off the field. The same argument goes for Pete Rose. I mean, if you look at strictly what he did on the field as a player, there is no doubt in my mind or within a shadow of a doubt that he should not be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, what he did afterwards, right? Well, again, it goes back to what I about some of these other guys that should be in the Hall of Fame and are just terrible people. I mean, and what's the difference of some of these guys who played in the 60s and 70s who took greenies and were able to stay on the field and get in the Hall versus, I took creatine or I took, whatever else. I mean, there's still, was there ever the whole McGwire thing all started because you saw the bottle of creatine in his locker when he was doing an interview. Let's call a spade here, because if you're going to judge strictly on, what kind of a person they are, then I'm going to tell you that half the people shouldn't be in the Baseball Hall of Fame, half the people shouldn't be in the Basketball Hall of Fame, and half the people shouldn't be in the National Football Hall of Fame. But we should just simply look at the numbers. The numbers do not lie.
I mean, look at the players from the 40s that were
oh, hell yeah.
Jackie Robinson.
Right.
Right. Especially from that own team, it's... And I get that. But the thing of it is, look, I think after all the names I mentioned, obviously besides Scott Rolen, I think the guys that get in the Hall of Fame at some point in time, Todd Helton, because I consider him the greatest Rocky of all time.
Also a great quarterback at the University of Tennessee.
Exactly. I think Billy Wagner gets in.
Has to be. Billy the Kid has to be in.
You have to put Billy the Kid in. He played 16 years in baseball from 95 to 10. He was a 7-time All-Star. He was a part of a combined no-hitter.
And he was a very good closer on that Houston Astros ball club that the Killer Bees caused the Cardinals a lot of headaches with Billy Wagner at the back end of that bullpen.
He's only one of 6 pitchers in history to have 400-plus career saves. And plus, I got to support my fellow Southpaws. He was a lefty. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I think those two get in. I do think Andrew Jones eventually gets in. Manny Ramirez, I think, gets in at some point because I'm not going to lie. Dude was a killer in the late 90s and early mid-2000s.
I think what hurts him is he was tied to that Mitchell report. He and David Ortiz both were.
Though.
Well, that's true. You think they felt bad for David Ortiz because he got shot?
They threw a parade for David Ortiz.
I know.
And
that's it's the pot calling the kettle black. And here's the thing. I'll make one more quick point and then I'll throw it back to you. A lot of these baseball writers, you would think the fact that I'm going to call them the good old boys club, because that most of the writers are, that they would, since they saw a lot of these players play like back in the 60s and 70s, and you can equate it to what you saw in the early 2000s, like you would be like, oh, you would think more of those guys would get in. But they're also the traditionalists that, oh, well, we don't need to have these guys in because it's such a prestigious club. That went out the window a long time ago. Yeah. There's no gold rope outside of Cooperstown that states that, oh, well, look, I'm sorry, you took a little bit of creatine and, you bulked up really quickly. Nah, I'm sorry. You can't be in the Hall of Fame. Come on. Half those. Nope, I'm not even going to say it. Just go ahead, Jeremy, before I put my foot in my mouth here. Go ahead.
Oh, got it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
just go ahead.
If that's the only place your foot ends up, I'm fine. But no, and you look at a lot of guys. Yes, Alex Rodriguez is probably one of the most notable names, and the fact that he's at 35.7%. I mean, Mark Burley, perfect game pitcher right there. People are going to hate me or they ain't going to hate me for it, but I do think, I feel like the definition of Hall of Fame varies by person. Because I'm not going to lie, if you pitched a perfect game, even if your career was not spectacular, and believe it or not, a lot of the players who pitched perfect games did not have spectacular careers. One of them being Dallas Braden.
Yep.
That he's the first one that came to mind, but he had such an iconic, perfect game.
It was on Mother's Day with his mother battling breast cancer.
Exactly. And I believe his grandmother was in attendance for that.
Yep. She sure was.
And so.
And he did it with the Oakland A's. That's even more impressive.
Yeah. Wait, Oakland A's?
The Vegas A's.
The Vegas A's. Yeah.
They're the Vegas A's. They're the Vegas
A's now. I love seeing old baseball cards with the old KC or Philly logos with the elephant.
Yes.
As it. I mean, it's almost as good a logo as this one.
I knew it was coming sooner or later.
I love it. Hey, turn that frown upside down, James.
Anyway. It makes me want to go back and watch old episodes of Heathcliff.
It's great. No, but I feel like the Hall of Fame varies by just a matter of opinion. You talk about the good old boys club. Yes, there are people that are set in their ways about what a Hall of Famer makes. But at the same time, look, there's going to be numbers that players make. First off, I'm not going to lie. You're never going to get 749 complete games like Cy Young threw. Because you're lucky these days if you can get a pitcher past the fifth
inning. Yeah.
Fourth inning if you're Dakota Hudson. And you're lucky that and then, of course, you got the reliever stats. You're lucky if you get the shutouts. You get all these no-hitters. And players aren't going to be as consistent with batting average because all they want to do is just swing for the home run ball. The Hall of Elite is separate from the Hall of the modern era, the old era and the modern era, because of just the way the game was played. It's just like football. It's just like any sport. As time evolves, so does the game played.
Right.
And because of that, yes, there's going to be records that may not seem as significant, but still are. Scott Rolen's stats offensively do not match up to a whole lot in the Hall of Fame. And I get that, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, he deserves to be in because out of the fewest, the absolute elite, like, here, I'm going to just make this clear to you. To me, the best third baseman of all time is Brooks Robinson. Mm-hmm. And to be in the Hall of Fame with Brooks Robinson, holy crap. Like, but no, here. I want to make this clear. Here are all the third basemen that are in the Hall of Fame. If I can remember correctly. Jeez. They're here somewhere. Oh, God dang it. Okay, so there's actually... Oh, I got it. Okay. I knew it was here somewhere. All right. So, here we're going to start with Home Run Baker. That was his name. Home Run Baker. Wade Boggs. George Brett. Jimmy Collins. Ray Dandridge. Judy Johnson. Chipper Jones. George Kell. Eddie Matthews. Freddie Lindstrom. Paul Molitor. Scott Rolen. Ron Santo. Brooks Robinson. Mike Schmidt. Deacon White. Judd Wilson, and Pie Traynor. And actually, we were wrong because there's only 18 third basemen. There's 19 catchers. So third basemen are still the lowest, represented position.
Well,
but look at that elite company that I just named.
Right. Yeah. Once Rolen is inducted, it'll be 19. So you look at it, and you're right. I mean, it isn't. I think the third base, that category is extremely elite. Josh says it's a time to look at categories, different categories for the Hall of Fame. These writers already do. And, a lot of them are what I've named. On base, slugging, excuse me, I get the hiccups. So you're looking at the slash lines, the three true outcomes really is what affects that. The on base, the slugging, and then the OBP, the OPS with the on base plus slugging. And then you look at the OPS plus, which the average is 100, and in Scott Rolen's case, it's 122. Jimmy Rollins will not be a Hall of Famer, by the way.
James, I got a question.
Yes.
Are you down for OBP?
Yeah, you know me. It's funny. I made that joke earlier today, actually.
I love it. Okay, go ahead.
Made that joke earlier today. But yeah, I mean, they're already looking at different categories. I mean, and it's the same for pitchers now. Wins, getting to 300 wins for a pitcher used to be the milestone, used to be the fence post. And I think you've had to move the fence post into looking at 200 and then looking at what their earn run average is, or what their whip is, which is walks, hits per innings pitched. So I mean, it's just a lot. It is becoming a sabermetric world. So yes, we have to alter the categories that the baseball writers are voting on. No, Seth Rollins, he's not going to be in the Hall of Fame either. Not in the baseball one anyway.
No, Seth Rollins won't be in the baseball Hall of Fame.
No.
Although, you know what? You know who...
I dig his fur coats.
I do think the Sandman will be in the Hall of Fame because he can swing a kendo stick, so I can imagine how he can swing a baseball bat.
But he's too drunk to hit a baseball.
I mean, to be fair, do you know how much a lot of these guys in the Baseball Hall of Fame drank?
Well, again, that goes back to how good of a person are you?
Freaking, oh my gosh. The guys in the really...
You think they were Catholic?
In the...
I did not say that.
Oh, man.
Okay, let's fast forward past that part. We can edit that out, right?
No, we're live, baby. That's how we roll. No, but I want to say Scott Rolen is deserving, and I do appreciate, and I am grateful, and congratulations to him. I mean, you know what interesting is that only, I believe, 7 of his doubles, or he only had 7 fewer doubles than Ken Griffey Jr., which that pisses me off that Ken Griffey Jr. was 1 vote shy of being unanimous.
That's because baseball writers are idiots.
I mean, and that's another thing that people are going to talk about. It's not because he's deserving. It's not about being deserving or undeserving. It also just comes down to the writers themselves.
Yep.
I mean, and a lot of writers, and this goes back to the early live ball era, in the 30s and the 40s, when the press had a lot of strained relations with players. Ted Williams was a perfect example. He hated getting like the press. And that's why some of them didn't vote for him in the Hall of Fame, because of how the relations were strained at the time.
Yep.
That's just how it is. It's all business.
Yep.
But Scott Rolen, well-deserved in my opinion. Congratulations on being inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. You will be joined by McGriff the Crime Dog later this year at the induction ceremony. Fred McGriff, another well-deserving, overdue member of.
He was a TV star too. Don't forget about the Tom Amansky instructional videos that come on at 3:00 in the morning. That damn infomercial was the epitome of my youth. I knew it was time to go to bed whenever Tom Amansky came on my television screen.
You know what hurts my soul is that he was 7 home runs shy of 500.
I know it.
That hurts my soul.
Generally, after the Carpet Queen commercials on local St. Louis TV. Oh goodness.
Yeah, I was about to say, can't forget Becky's Carpet.
Yeah, that was her, Becky, the Queen of Carpets. Thank you so much.
Queen of Carpets. Literally, how can you forget about Becky? She is a freaking icon here. We still love her to this day.
Rest in peace. I'm sorry.
Dead.
Yes, she did. She died.
No, she didn't.
Yes, she did, Jeremy.
What?
Okay, she did. I'm not kidding. I'm really not kidding. Riverfront Times did a story on that right after she passed away. This is a while ago.
Oh, well, I don't know.
Yeah, 5 years ago. Josh knows. 5 years ago.
The fuck?
Jeremy just had a come to reality moment there for a minute. Sorry.
Okay, well, she didn't die in my heart.
Aww. See, she still has a soft spot in your heart.
Yeah, she still got.
I hope it's big enough for her. Okay.
Well, given my situation.
I'm sorry. I don't know what kind of a mood I'm in. Yeah, mine either. I don't know what kind of a mood I'm into tonight, but geez.
Yeah, folks, I'm not gonna stay.
If you wanted political correctness, I'm sorry. You tuned into the wrong damn show.
Yeah.
They're on. Yeah, her carpets are on clearance.
Mm.
They're not half off. That's for damn sure.
Okay.
All right, come on. We got to move on here. I'm going to get in trouble. I'm glad the FCC doesn't.
Before James is going to be the death of us, literally. In fact, just for that, James, you are punished because you're going to have to deal with this for the next few minutes.
That's okay.
Okay, so I'm censoring James. Whenever James is going to talk, I'm putting up the tiger.
That's what Joe Burrow is going to do to the Chiefs this weekend.
Which brings us to our talk, folks, of NFL playoff football. I am looking forward to this weekend because it is the AFC and the NFC Championship game. And I'm telling you, folks,
no, I'm on a diet, Josh.
Divisional weekend.
He asked if I was hangry. I said, no, I'm on a diet.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, yes, divisional round weekend was insane. Although, I'm not going to lie, there was only one game that was actually pretty entertaining. The other games, look, we both called it. We both said the Giants were going to win, and they got steamrolled by the Philadelphia Eagles. They did the exact opposite of win. They did the exact opposite of putting up a fight.
Wait a minute. I thought we said the Giants would beat the Vikings. I don't remember any of us saying that the Giants would beat the Eagles.
We said they were going to beat the Eagles with an underdog upset.
You're on crack. I never said that. I'm not that damn stupid. Crazy, well, yes. Stupid, no.
Then I must be the only one.
Check the tape. This is one of those, what are those, the progressive commercials where I was like, I'd like to throw the red flag. I'd like to challenge this.
I'm throwing a red flag. I know I felt in my heart. You know what? I probably picked the Eagles, but I still said in my heart I feel like they would beat the Giants. I don't know. I'm getting.
I think my upset pick was the Jaguars over the Chiefs.
Oh well.
Which I missed on that one too.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna go one game at a time, folks, and we're gonna start with, of course, our lovely Kansas City Chiefs as they defeated the Jacksonville Jaguars a la Chad Henne style because Patrick Mahomes decided to get a high ankle sprain in the first quarter. And enter Chad Henne, who goes out there and drives 90-something yards down the field for a touchdown because he is just that damn good, and so are the Kansas City Chiefs. And Jacksonville...
It helps when the Jaguars. It helps when the Jaguars don't guard Travis Kelce at all.
Right, a record 14 receptions in a game. Let me make it clear that it was a hell of an effort by the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence and that offense gave Kansas City everything they had to offer. And Doug Peterson has put himself in position to be Coach of the Year.
Yep.
I mean, this was the most close, intense game of the divisional round this weekend. And Jacksonville, coming off being, the worst team in the league last year, the amount of improvements they made is insane. They got a great core of wide receivers and offensive playmakers. They got a very good front group on defense. You just got to up the secondary a little bit and get some more protection for Trevor Lawrence. Honestly, this team could be really going somewhere farther next year.
Yeah, it's certainly hard to disagree with that. I mean, they've been really. I mean, Jacksonville, they lost a lot of games by one score, and I mean they lost to the Colts earlier this year on a just a prayer by Matt Ryan to a receiver. I don't even know if he's still in the damn league. I don't even remember his name. But with 12 seconds left, that cost the Jaguars that game. So I mean they could have won 2 or 3 more games if it had not been for just timely plays. It's like a defensive lapse here or there, or like we saw against the Chiefs. Agnew's going into the end zone and he fumbles the ball. It's a non-contact fumble, which, killed the Jaguars' momentum right there. And then, Trevor throws the interception near the end of the game, but at that point in time, you're just trying to force the ball down the field. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do. You don't have any timeouts left. You're just trying to get down the field, and it was kind of like the Hail Mary and the prayer wasn't answered. But, you're right. That Jaguars team has a good young core on offense with Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne. They've got guys like Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. Marvin Jones Jr. was great for them this year. They get Calvin Ridley added to that offense next year when his suspension is up. So that's going to be a team offensively that you can really, hang your hat on. Defensively is where they need some additions. Another corner on the back end would help, and then maybe some linebacker help to help out guys like Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen. But they are a very good team, and they're certainly on the ascend in the AFC.
And you know what? Being in the terrible division they are in definitely doesn't hurt their case.
Right.
But you know what? The biggest thing they had to do is prove other teams wrong. And they did that in the last few weeks of the season. They came back from behind to beat the Cowboys. They came back from behind to beat the Titans to win the division. And they came back from 27-0 in
to beat the
entering
Chargers.
The second quarter to beat the Los Angeles Chargers in the wild card game.
Yeah.
How that happened, I'm still stunned about. And they traded blow for blow with the Kansas City Chiefs.
They really
can't
did.
ask for much more besides, obviously, win. But this is a positive step for Jacksonville Jaguars and for fans of course, Jags history, being the prominent one that tunes in every week. I know there's a lot to look forward to in their future. With that, we're going to move to our next AFC divisional round game that happened this week. And can we just say it was an absolute bloodbath in the snow?
Oof. Wow.
I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals obliterated the Buffalo Bills, and it brings back the question I am asking you, James, and everybody that's tuning in. Please comment on this, and if you think that's fine. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Is Josh Allen overhyped?
He is overhyped. I also believe he's overrated. I think that's a good Bills team. I'm not going to take anything away from them. They won their division. They did what they needed to do to get to the divisional round. But yes, they're overhyped. And look, we go back to the first meeting between the Bengals and Bills. I know it wasn't a game that was finished, but when all of that happened, the Bengals had a 7-3 lead and were driving. So, I think that Joe Burrow has certainly surpassed Josh Allen in the sense of being the quarterback that is going to challenge Patrick Mahomes the most. This is going to be the Brady Manning type matchup between Mahomes and Joe Burrow. It could be where, 1 year Mahomes wins every meeting, the next year, back and forth, or they split them. I just think that Josh Allen he's too reckless with the football. Whether it's putting it on the ground or whether it's, taking chances with the ball down the field. He turns the ball over way too much. And when you get into the playoffs, especially when you get into the playoffs, you cannot turn the ball over. Turnovers obviously make or break a game. And Josh Allen, he has weapons. He's got Stephon Diggs. He's got Gabe Davis. He's got Dawson Knox. Those are guys that have been prominent roles in this offense. He's got plenty of weapons. The problem is don't try to force the ball when it's not needed. Sometimes it's just better to throw it away or check down and take a 5-yard gain instead of trying to get the extra 10, 15 yards and then it's coming back the other way.
It's interesting because heading into the season, there was a lot of talk about if Josh Allen was overrated. Or if the Bills were overrated. Everybody treated it like the team from the 90s that went to 4 straight Super Bowls. But the thing of it is, and you know what, I also want to say, Josh brings up a point that I brought up to my friend yesterday. This is a team that 3 years ago was in the midst of the longest postseason drought in pro sports. They were the last team. Let's really put this in perspective. The Bills were the last team in the major 4 pro sports to make the playoffs in the 21st century. And this is the team that was a few years after that had made 4 straight Super Bowls.
Right.
Like, oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Mm-hmm.
But no, this is what the defensive line investment in the Bills are currently. So, first we're going to look at the defensive line. So, in 2019 in the first round, they drafted Ed Oliver. Second round in 2020, they drafted A.J. Epineza. In 2021, they drafted Gregory Rousseau in the first round and Boogie Basham in the second round. Add in Von Miller, Daquan Jones, and Tim Settle. That is a combined, for those 3 last players I named, that is over $31 million APY for them. And you take into account the 4 D linemen I mentioned, and they crumbled. They crumbled against the Bengals on all that investment into a defense when the Bengals are starting 3 backup linemen on offense. Joe Burrow, at one point the most sacked quarterback in the league. Joe Burrow, the one who got a torn ACL because his linemen could not block for him. Joe Burrow, the one that isn't used to playing in snow like Josh Allen is, stormed into Buffalo, where everyone's riding high with emotion and momentum, thinking, look, we squeaked by Miami, but shit, DeMar Hamlin's in the building, so we're going to have to blow out the Bengals, right? They did the exact opposite.
Right.
It has been a long time since I saw a choke that bad. Like, I'm honest. This is worse to me than the Chargers and Jaguars game. Ooh. Because this is why. Score, of course not. That goes without saying. But it's worse for the perspective because the Bills entered this season as the Super Bowl favorites.
Right.
The Chargers were a team that was in the middle of what was supposed to be the toughest division in football. Justin Herbert's not been all that great this year. Let's make that clear. He has the best dual threat player in the league named Austin Eckler. Take out Austin Eckler, the Chargers are behind Denver and Vegas probably. Given all their bad coaching decisions, given all the facts that they can't get receivers that stay healthy, yeah. But anyway, yes, the line was always going to be the weakest point of the Bengals, and they still held up against some of the best.
Right.
Now, let's talk about another guy here. Gabe Davis. The hero last year. The one who was seconds away from being the reason that the Bills made the AFC title game and not the Chiefs. Mere seconds. Literally seconds.
13 seconds.
13 seconds to be exact. Big disappointment this year. Isaiah McKenzie.
Who?
Exactly.
Yep, you got it.
Cole Beasley. Probably should. I know, say what you want about the vaccination status. But
damn it, you beat me to it. God dang it.
But you know what? He should have been back earlier. You know why? Because at least he has a connection with Josh Allen.
Yeah, they took a shot.
Dawson Knox. Solid player, but you know what? Really spotty.
Don't bang on his last name.
He's going to have... Yeah, I know. I mean, I feel bad for anybody with that name.
Son of a... All right. We're going to play that game.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Hurt my soul about Becky some more?
No, I'm sorry.
No.
If she's in your heart, she's hurting your soul enough.
You know what?
Anyway.
She ain't anyway, then the running game.
Who?
The running game that maybe is there was a complete
James Cook
cluster all season. Yeah, James Cook, Zach Moss for a while, Devin Singletary. Oh, and can't forget about the star man who was actually a better returner than anyone this year.
Nyheim Hines,
the wonderful running back from the Colts. It just blows my mind. I look at the MVP voter or the MVP players that were on the list. You had Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes, Justin Jefferson, and Jalen Hurts. One of them is not like the others. You know what it is? It's Josh Allen does not deserve to be in that conversation this season.
So I'm going to make a very unpopular opinion point here, and this is gonna turn some eyes. I guarantee it. The Bills became a prohibitive good feel-good story because of Damar Hamlin. That team got all of the recognition and the accolade late in the season when they made the playoffs because of Damar Hamlin. Don't allow the fact that they had a lot of holes, and don't forget about the hole that he opened up on the defensive backfield for the Bills when he got hurt. But again, it's the feel-good story. The Bills are this. No, the feel-good story was Damar Hamlin, and praise God the fact that he's still doing okay. But it does not or should not overshadow the fact that the Bills got dominated in that game. And in their own conditions, in Buffalo, in the cold, in the snow, Joe Mixon ran all over that team. Yes. And the fact that Zach Taylor, their head coach, finally remembered that they do exist on that team and have a running game, ran all over the Buffalo Bills. To the fact that if Von Miller were playing, he would have cleat marks running up his back.
And, look, Allen's 26 years old. We're not acting like this is the end of his career right here. This was his last season type shit. No. Josh Allen has a long career ahead of him. Although at the rate he plays when he scrambles and he runs and he takes those bruising hits, we don't know. But I will say this much. My friend was telling me last night, he was talking about somebody bringing up the conversation about former quarterback in the NFL who you can compare to, or Josh Allen to at the moment. And I want you to take a guess at who that is. I'm going to give you a hint. So this quarterback has played our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
He played with one team all but one season.
Alex Smith.
He was a multi-time Pro Bowler, passed for over 63,000 yards, and over 400 touchdowns. No, it is not Kurt Warner, Josh. That is a good guess, but no. But I really want you to think about this. And I'll say this.
Comparable in the fact that he was a scrambling running quarterback as well?
Yeah, and the fact he was a tough SOB, and he also Never won a Super Bowl.
Oh.
Oh, Michael Vick. That is not it, but that's a good guess, Josh.
He never won a Super Bowl.
He never won a Super Bowl in the NFL.
Played in our lives.
I mean, he couldn't win it anywhere else either.
Randall Cunningham?
No. Roger Staubach won a lot of Super Bowls. He is part of an elite club.
Not Warren Moon.
Nope. Matt Hasselbeck's another good guess. In fact,
this is tough.
Josh is getting there. All right, I'm going to tell you who it is by just showing you one picture.
Phillip Rivers.
Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
Now, really think about this. People are going to be like, you're comparing Josh Allen to Phillip Rivers? Yes. Because first off, they're two of the toughest quarterbacks you would find. Phillip Rivers played the entire AFC Championship in 06 with a torn ACL. Or in 07. But he played the entire game with a torn ACL. Let's put this in perspective. You can hardly walk on a torn ACL.
Been there.
It takes a year of recovery from a torn ACL. Like, muscles on a torn ACL. Yep. James has been there. You
snaps.
Asked him.
Yeah, no fun.
It snaps.
Got the scar to prove
it. Oh, God. Yeah. James, how long was your recovery?
Well, I came back early only because I forced the issue.
Okay, well, way to go.
But generally, like, what it should have been was probably 12 to 14 months.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Phillip Rivers had it happen during a game, and he played it. So
Definitely not Jay Cutler.
Josh Allen deals with so much, and he fights through it all. He takes the bruising hits from linebackers and D linemen who aren't afraid to hit him. And what does he do? He gets back up and goes in the huddle.
Then turns the ball over.
And then turns the ball over.
And then throws a pick.
But you know what? I'm not going to lie, and I hate to say it because I love him, but Phillip Rivers did the same thing. 209 interceptions speak for themselves.
It's very similar to Brett Favre, except for the fact that Brett actually won a Super Bowl. A World Series. Oops.
And that Josh Allen and Phillip Rivers are not thieving assholes like Brett Favre.
Yeah, they don't have tape on their hands putting it in the Salvation Army pot.
Well, exactly. They don't have a coin going in the vending machine with a little hole punch in it with a string attached. Whee!
Yep.
But no, and this is a legitimate comparison I'm trying to make here because, oh God, Jay didn't play because of a.
I was referring to Jay Cutler.
Yeah, which ironic paper cut, but no. This is the thing. You look at a guy like Josh Allen. His career's far from over. But as of now, he is in the Phillip Rivers category of the NFL current quarterbacks. If you take all the quarterbacks in the NFL, and you take all the quarterbacks in the NFL that were there when Phillip Rivers was playing, they are at the same point.
Yeah.
Because Phillip Rivers never won that Super Bowl, but he was at a top level all those years. Josh Allen is at a top level all these years, but he has never won the Super Bowl. He's never gotten there.
Yeah.
He hasn't even made the AFC Championship.
Well, and the hardest thing to do is not to get to the top of the mountain. The hardest thing to do is to stay there. And you got a guy that he gets halfway up the mountain and he slides all the way back down. And look, at some point in time, the Buffalo Bills window is going to close. The Dolphins are a good team. And, they're going to catch them at some point in time.
But the Patriots are even figuring out, and I hate to say it, once they realize Zach Wilson's not the answer, the Jets.
I was getting ready to say that. Yeah,
they got a very good offense. Sans their quarterback situation, Mike White,
and their defense is good.
Flacco, and their defense is good. The
Sauce Gardner
is not a bad Who defensive rookie of the year? Just give it to him.
The AFC East is not the same division that Tom Brady won over and over again. It's not.
Yes, it's not. It wasn't just because Tom Brady was great. It was because the rest of the division was trash.
Oh yeah.
There was some garbage ass teams those years,
including the Bills.
Including the Bills. The Bills were one of them when J.P. Lossman and E.J. and all them were quarterbacks.
Damn, J.P. Lossman.
the same draft that Phillip Rivers, Big Ben, and Eli Manning came from came
Yep.
good old J.P. Lossman in the first round.
Yeah.
And yes, I agree with Josh on this one. It's nice to see multiple teams having a shot here. But you know what? When you are a team having a shot, look, okay, perfect example, AFC West this year. The AFC West was won by the Chiefs for two reasons. Number one, Pat Mahomes is this year's MVP. And if there is anybody else I would put in the MVP conversation, I'm putting Travis Kelce. And I will take that to my grave. I've taken a lot of quotes on this show to my grave, and they're going to have to put a giant binder with them in there. But damn it, Travis Kelce should have gotten MVP votes. Now, with that said, another reason, week after week, game after game, the Broncos, Chargers, and Raiders kept shooting themselves in the foot.
True.
This was supposed to be the toughest division to predict, the closest division race at the end, and it wasn't. The Broncos were trash. The Raiders were trash that just happened to have two great players on it. And the Chargers were decent enough to be better than the Raiders and the Broncos. And what happens next? The Chiefs steamroll all of them. The Bills have a perfect time to take advantage of being in the AFC East while the other teams are figuring out their future situations. And you're absolutely right, because what's going to happen, James, is that window's going to close. Josh Allen is going to want more money than he's worth, and the Bills might not be able to pay it. Because guess what? Joe Burrow is already asking. I know for sure Joe Burrow is already being asked, is going to intend on asking for over $50 million per year.
Yep. At some point in time, Bill's going to come due.
Every quarterback, Aaron Rodgers makes about $55 million a year, I believe. 55, 60 million. Any quarterback from this point on is going to want more than that. If they are drafted as the franchise guy, because of the deals like Wilson has, because of Deshaun Watson's deal, because of Aaron Rodgers' deal, these are the ones that set the bar for all the young guns like Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. And in that mix, you got two guys from the 2018 draft that are winning a lot of money. You got Josh Allen and you got Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
And in the next 2 or 3 years, they could both be on different teams.
Yep, it's very true.
So, bottom line is, this was the game to prove that the Bills were not frauds, that they were the team they said they were. And at the end of the day, the Bengals proved they're the team nobody else said they were.
Yeah.
The Bengals are going to be going to Kansas City, not a neutral site. They're not going to Atlanta. They're not going to Indy. They're not going to Detroit. They're going to Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium. And Joe Burrow has done the nice thing of not talking trash about the fans at Arrowhead like Trevor Lawrence did, because we saw what happened that time.
I don't think he necessarily talked trash about them. He was trying to build up his own team's fans more.
Yeah, that worked.
Well, it almost did. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault it didn't.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't his fault Jamal Agnew fumbled. I'll say this. You know what? The Jaguars miss out on playoff game victories because of fumbles. Have you realized that?
Mm-hmm.
Remember the AFC title game a few years ago? How'd that
Yep.
go? Okay.
Yep.
All that aside, you got the Bengals and the Chiefs in the AFC title game. And James, with what we've seen with Joe Burrow and what we've seen of Patrick Mahomes, what do you expect? Who do you expect to win this game?
Got to give me Joe Burrow. I like I said on the Facebook post, whenever you posted that, Cincinnati was next or something like that, I said, "Yep, Patrick Mahomes, Daddy's coming to town."
Yeah, when Pat Mahomes tweeted about the clock ticking.
Yeah. It said, Daddy's coming, it's visitation, and Daddy's coming to pick you up.
You know what? People don't realize how much this is actually in the Bengals' favor.
Mm-hmm.
This game rides a lot on the Bengals, and it's not just because of Mahomes being injured. Because let me tell you something, Patrick Mahomes could lose a leg, and he'll still find a way to hop out there.
Yeah, I was really impressed how he played after the injury, and he was none too happy with Andy Reid and that trainer pulling him out of that game. No, I mean, And I get why that they did. I mean, obviously, you think you can win the game. You're looking ahead to, against Cincinnati, and you want Mahomes as healthy as he can be. And he was not in a walking boot today, which is good for the Chiefs. Man, Cincinnati, they have got so many weapons, and that Chiefs defense at times, that secondary forgets how to play.
Yeah, they really do. But you know what? Arrowhead is Josh. You know what? Okay, I'm gonna give you my prediction for the AFC title game. Then we're gonna go to what Josh is asking. So here's my thing. I look at the two teams. Bengals are at their hottest. I mean, it's unbelievable. But there's just something about playoff Chiefs that is just unbelievable. And you know what? I think we're going to get, and I know we're going to get to the NFC shortly, but my Super Bowl prediction is going to be a rematch of a Super Bowl we both recently saw. And I think it's going to be a rematch between the Chiefs and 49ers. I say that because, look, a man is most dangerous when he's in a corner. And right now, Mahomes is in a corner. And you don't hear that often.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
Nobody puts baby in a corner. Nobody puts Mahomes in a corner. Of course, you got to put him in a corner. He's a quarterback. But nobody puts him in a corner. And he is so backed up. And he's going to put everything he has out there. Because guess what? He's already hurt. So he's going to give it his. He's going to go 110% out there.
How did that work out for the Chiefs last year when Joe Burrow came to town?
It was a bad look. It was bad. It didn't work out for him last year when Joe Burrow came to town. The Bengals won, and they deserved it, and they earned it.
And that's why I think
there wasn't no controversy, and it wasn't no bullshit. They won that game.
And that's why I think that they win again, because Burrow's come into Arrowhead and done it in a playoff game with that kind of atmosphere. And look, we talk about Joe Burrow, and we talk about the weapons he has, but let's focus on Joe Burrow for just a second. That man, literally, there's a reason why his nickname is Joe Burr, because he is a stone cold killer in the playoffs. I don't know, and look, I'm a Rams fan, and the Bengals should have won that game last year. I have no problem saying that. But the Bengals turned the ball over and couldn't protect Burrow when it counted. But, I mean, you look at it now, and look, the offensive line for Burrow is not all that much better. It is still fractured, to say the least. But I think it is. I think it's a high-scoring game, but I do think that because the Bengals have gone into Arrowhead and won before, I think that they can pull it off again this year.
Sounds like a plan to me. We'll see what happens. Now, we head to the NFC. But you know what? First, I want to put this in perspective with you, James. Let's really think back to how the Cowboys were in the wild card round, with Brett Maher missing 4 extra points.
Mm-hmm.
And he practices in pregame, and he does great. And then the game starts.
If that kick does not get blocked, it was going wide anyway.
I kept trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, saying it's going to go get blocked and it was going to go in, but no, it really wasn't. It was going wide. Brett Maher just messed up again.
Oh man, it was shankalicious.
Oh jeez.
But I will tell you, you talk about the Cowboys team that we saw what they were in the wild card round versus the divisional round. I think that game showed you how bad Tampa was and not how good Dallas is.
Right.
I mean, when you look at just Dallas could not move the ball whatsoever against the 49ers. And, this was a game that really was played in the trenches. There wasn't a lot of scoring. I thought it would be a 21-17 game. I thought that at least the Niners would find pay dirt, on 3 different times, and it didn't work that way. Their biggest their biggest weapon was Robbie Gould on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. They did a great job of limiting the attack of the 49ers. The Dallas defense was not the reason they lost that game. It was strictly because of the 49ers. Oh, I'm sorry. It was strictly because of Dak Prescott and the jobs of Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy, which both should be hotter than ever right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because holy shit. I mean, Tony Pollard goes down.
Yeah, broken leg.
Goes down, broken leg. And what happens? You don't make any adjustments? Are you serious? Like, I just, oh my God.
Kellen Moore did not have a backup plan if any of their weapons got hurt. And Kellen Moore's their offensive coordinator, for those who didn't know. But, you look at it, and once Pollard went down, that offense, it seemed to go into a shell. And, Dak throws just 2 terrible interceptions. I mean, the first one, he gets the route jumped because he's literally staring down CeeDee Lamb, and he gets that one picked off on the route jump there by the corner. And then the second one, who the hell was he throwing the ball to?
I don't even know, man.
I mean, if you think Dak Prescott is a franchise quarterback, you got other things coming in. The Cowboys.
He has less wins than Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
And Brock Purdy was drafted last this year. And Dak Prescott has less playoff wins than him. Dak has 1. And let's not act like Dak Prescott's a 24-year-old. Dak Prescott is literally 29 years old. He was drafted in 2016, which, interestingly enough, is the same draft Cody Kessler got drafted in.
Yeah.
But, no, I'm like, it blows my mind because I'm sick of, and I'm going to go on this quick rant, and then I got to step out for a second because I need to collect myself because I'm saying to myself, I'm sick of this moniker about how the Cowboys are hyped up every year to be this year. Like, this would be their year. Great. They ended a streak of not winning a road playoff game since, 1993. Okay, good for them. Congratulations, Mazel Tov. And possibly might have sent Tom Brady to a new team. On top of that, then you get to the fact that they go to the divisional round against the Niners, who they've had some of the best playoff games of all time against each other. It's one of the ultimate playoff series. And they completely shit the bed, which for a guy that doesn't really like the Cowboys, I don't mind. But at the same time, when you're wanting this much money for Dak Prescott, when you're Dak wanting this much money, you don't throw the picks. He was lucky he didn't have a third pick that went for a touchdown.
Right.
Meanwhile, holds on to that. That's a pick 6.
Yep.
It was right there. And everybody knows it, but you know what? The Niners were winning, and they didn't mind it as much at the time. So,
yeah. I mean, you're right. When it comes down to it, and you go back to the 90s when Dallas and San Francisco, where it seemed like every year they were in the NFC Championship game against each other. And, Dallas is one of those teams, and you're right, and I can address this fully because I know I have some friends that are Dallas Cowboy fans, unfortunately.
Well, I'm going to lead you to this. I'm going to let you have the floor on this one.
They are absolutely obnoxious when it comes to preseason or when they get into the playoffs. And we've seen what has happened the last 2 years. So they go to San Francisco in the divisional round this year. And San Francisco shut them down, made them a one-dimensional football team, especially after Tony Pollard got hurt with the broken leg. The Cowboys then cannot get anything going offensively. And San Francisco's defense, they just kind of constricted and made that offense one-dimensional. Fine. Last year, you had the Cowboys driving and with a chance to beat the 49ers. And, funny enough, Dak Prescott tries to run the ball, and they forget exactly how much time is left on the clock. And, yeah. Okay. Let's go back to the year before that, which was the COVID year. They didn't make the playoffs. Go to the year before that, 2019. This is when the Rams lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Rams play the Cowboys in L.A. in Wild Card weekend. And the Rams were able to use their running game between Todd Gurley, who was limited, and then Anderson, the other running back, and they shoved it down Dallas's throat. The defense constricted around Dallas and knocked Dallas out of the playoffs. Boy, there is a big time, just a streak here of bad Dallas Cowboy play in the playoffs. And we go back to the wild card round this year. Dallas has a chance to show the world that they're the Dallas Cowboys of old. They go in and just blister Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. That doesn't show you how good the Cowboys are. It showed you how bad Tampa was. In the NFC South, Tampa gets into the playoffs with a losing record. That whole division was crap all year long. So you've got that. Now the Cowboys are turning into what we would refer to in the equivalent of the Chicago Cubs. Well, we'll get it. There's always next year. And so the Cowboys, obviously, they go home. Dak Prescott is not a franchise quarterback. There's no way in the world he should be asking for the money that he is asking for. And if he thinks that he's a top echelon quarterback in the NFL, he's sadly mistaken. Tony Pollard is a free agent. Obviously, breaking your leg is going to set him back a little bit training-wise, but it's not like tearing an ACL, an MCL, a PCL, or any ligament in your knee that's going to take a year's worth of recovery time. You're going to lose pieces on the offensive line and on the defense as well. So Dallas Cowboy fans are extremely delusional. They're all over social media, we dem boys or whatever else. Just give me a break. The only thing that I'm sure Dak Prescott could do well is to work at a bakery and serve turnovers on a yearly basis. That's the only thing he's good at. And I would think that Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, has to be looked at. And also Mike McCarthy. Not a great, in Green Bay, he showed that he could be creative as a head coach and also as a play caller. He also had Aaron Rodgers. And as much of a non-Aaron Rodgers fan as I am, Dak Prescott is certainly not Aaron Rodgers, will never be Aaron Rodgers. And at times I wonder if Dak Prescott is as good as Jordan Love, who is Aaron Rodgers' backup. So, you've got the Bengals and the Chiefs in the AFC. The Niners advance, and they will play in Philadelphia. That's the early game on Sunday, as the Niners will go east as the Eagles were the 1 seed. And it should be a pretty good game. I would think you've got two really good defenses. You've got two quarterbacks that can certainly be wild cards in any game they play in. Brock Purdy for the Niners, and then, of course, Jalen Hurts, the MVP candidate at the home for the Eagles. And that should be a really good game as well. I think the Eagles do pull it out. And I honestly think that we see an Eagles-Bengals Super Bowl. So Jeremy thinks that...
Eagles-Bengals?
Yep.
Wow. So literally the opposite.
Of what you have.
Well, knowing my luck with being right on things, it's going to be the Eagles-Bengals. Or no, at least knowing you being right on things, it's going to be Eagles-Bengals.
Yeah,
But, no. But when I look at the Eagles, and I'm going to tell you this because I've already ranted enough about Dallas and how shitty they are when it comes to important games and how much I love that. But I was disappointed the Giants lost. Whether or not I did predict they would win last week, I can't remember because I'm lucky to remember what I ate 2 days ago. Right. But I enjoyed the ride. I enjoyed seeing this team prove me wrong all season long and go to the playoffs when nobody predicted them to go anywhere. They thought Brian Dable was going to be one and done. And look at him go. This team has the pieces they need for the future. And I'm looking forward to it. But they face the Eagles, who have one of the best rushing attacks in the NFL. They are a gritty team and I also have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL.
Right.
Do not underestimate that offensive line with Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson. And Jalen Hurts, like I said, MVP candidate. and you also look at some of the other guys, Reed Blankenship at safety, James Bradbury, who was a huge part of that game.
Yeah.
I mean, who was a former Giant. So the future's bright for the Giants. The future's bright for the Eagles, even if they don't win next week. Future's mid for the Cowboys, and I don't even know if Washington's going to be a team much longer at the rate Dan Snyder's running that thing into the ground.
Very true.
So you got the Bengals and Eagles, and I got the Niners and Chiefs.
Yep.
You know what? I don't mind. It's about time we see.
I think any matchup we get is going to make for a really good Super Bowl. I really do.
Do you feel that at the end of the season, at the end of everything we've been through, or not we, but the league they've been through, these are the 4 best teams in the NFL right now?
I do, and I don't even really think it's questionable. I think that, San Francisco, obviously seeing them a lot playing in the NFC West, considering that's the division the Rams playing. The Niners just they manhandled everybody in that division, and their defense, and then it just shows you that how good Brock Purdy is. And because, I know a lot of people say, well, any quarterback can win in that system. True. I mean, you lost Trey Lance, you lost Jimmy Garoppolo, and now you're down to your third string quarterback. Perhaps any quarterback can play in that system, but you also can't turn the ball over and lose games for your team either.
Right. And, they kind of say, like, when things get tough, it separates the boys and the men. This definitely separates the good teams from the great teams, or the great teams from the elite teams.
Right.
And you look at who we have. The 49ers and the Eagles are the most well-balanced teams in the NFL. Eagles have a very underrated receiving group. The 49ers rushing attack is, like, with Christian McCaffrey, big dual threat guy right there. To me, second best in the league besides Eckler. Deebo Samuel, who doesn't have to do as much double duty work because McCaffrey's there. And look, whoever you have at quarterback for the Niners, whether it's going to be Brock Purdy from the future on, whether it's Jimmy G, whether it's going to be Trey Lance, the team is set. And because don't get me started on the defense. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, these are top playmakers at their positions.
Right.
Nick Bosa is a defensive player of the year, caliber player. He's defensive rookie of the year for a reason. So I look at these teams, and yes, these are the 4 best teams in the NFL. It sucks because my team's not on there, but, neither's yours.
Mine isn't either.
Right. So, it's just crazy to think about how a season changes things. People talk about winning the offseason and why that's not a big deal. It really is. It's a big deal, but it's a bigger deal how you capitalize off it.
Yep.
And so, this weekend we have the AFC and NFC title games. The AFC title game is going to be Sunday, January 29th at 5 o'clock p.m. And meanwhile, the NFC Championship game is going to be Sunday at 2 o'clock p.m. Both times are Central, I believe.
Yep.
And I am so looking forward to it. I'm getting sad, though, because we're getting closer to the end of football season. But then I get happy because
it's getting closer to baseball season, Jared.
That's what I'm saying. Then I'm getting happy because it's closer to baseball.
That sounded kind of sultry, doesn't it? It's getting closer to. I can't even do it.
Oh God.
Oh, I'm getting slap happy.
We're gonna. You know what? It's been a while. It's about that time, James. Nope, not that one. That one. That's what you get. So, folks, before we close up the show for this evening, and thank you all so much for tuning in to Roundabout Sports. I'm the maestro Jeremy Karp alongside Hollywood James Knox. We're going to get a little Royal Rumble talk in because it is this Saturday, and then we are going to have yet another special edition of Knox's Corner here on Roundabout Sports.
I'm not so sure anybody wants to come to that corner with me tonight.
I was going to say, so because I haven't given James the platform enough already tonight. Now he's going to have his segment.
Drive a white van and hand out candy.
Right. Where he can literally...
Oh my God! At least I'm in a good mood.
You know what? Yeah, I can much easier deal with you in a good mood than a bad one. Okay, So first let's talk about that 30th anniversary of Monday Night Raw. That was a couple days ago. Starts out with Hulk Hogan doing his, spiel. And of course the mic was cutting in and out because they were afraid Hulk Hogan was going to say something that he shouldn't. No. Got the crowd hyped up for the show. And trial Sami Zayn. You know what? I love it.
That was really good.
I loved it because the Bloodline's the best thing going in WWE right now. And this was the first time Roman Reigns truly was pissed off at Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
It was the first time he was really furious and Sami almost got taken out by Solo Sikoa. And then what happened? Jey Uso stopped him. So I loved it. I thought that was a great segment. Paul Heyman airing his grievances, and of course one of the quarterbacks in the playoffs' first name is Brock, and so Paul Heyman had to bring that up.
Yeah, because they were live from Philadelphia, so you had the ECW chants going on, and then he of course pulls out the Brock Purdy.
And yeah, so later on we have the Judgment Day versus the Usos. And it was a hell of a tag team match, and the Usos win. We have
thanks to Sami Zayn. Don't hide the lead here. Don't bury the lead. You get Jey Uso or Jimmy Uso hurt. Jimmy Uso gets hurt, and Adam Pearce comes out, and Sami Zayn, hey, look, I'll take his spot. Prove to the tribal chief, and I look. There were so many near falls near the end of that match where you thought this was going to be it. This is the breaking point for Sami Zayn. But, I mean, they end up winning. That was so cool to see. I was happy. But you could tell, they're obviously taking this storyline in a different direction because Roman Reigns was like, fine, he did his job. I don't want to see him until Saturday. I mean, there was no, it didn't seem like there was any redeeming qualities that Roman Reigns took out of that win at all.
But I think that's how it's supposed to be. When you're the guy, when you're Roman Reigns and you're the head of the table,
you expect that.
You expect that. Why should you? In his position, he's saying to himself, "Why should Sammy get praised for something that I expect him to do?"
Touche.
That's how I look at it. And then later on in the show, of course, you have the Seth freaking Rollins and the Street Profits versus Imperium, but that's after DX comes out.
With Kurt Angle.
With Kurt Angle, yes. DX and Kurt Angle, because Badass Billy Gunn can't be there because he's in AEW. And then Imperium comes out, and they have a big confrontation, and it's the usual comedy. Look, overall, I'm getting past the point because we got to get to the Rumble, and you got to get to Knox's Corner. But at the end of the day, Raw's 30th anniversary was great. Nothing that I would be. It was the greatest show ever, but it was great enough to where I said to myself, I know a reason why I've been watching it since 2005.
Yeah.
To watch it for 18 years, I'm not gonna lie, that is a long time to be watching it. I can't believe I've been watching it that long. Holy shit.
I remember the first episode of Monday at Raw from the ballroom in Lower Manhattan, and Bobby the Brain Heenan trying to everything he could to get into the building. It was Vince McMahon. It was the Macho Man Randy Savage. He had a lot of different color analysts with him over time. One of the matches that night was The Undertaker versus Kamala. You want to go back that far? Shawn Michaels fought on that. You had Razor Ramon. You had the 1-2-3 Kid, otherwise known as X-Pac, otherwise known as Six, otherwise known as whatever else you want to, I mean, so you had that. I mean, so for me, like the little video montage they did showing like of different happenings and different instances and situations throughout the timeline of the show was really awesome. I remember when they were doing the show weekly from the ballroom every week because it was too expensive to travel and Vince McMahon wasn't sure this was going to work. And then, 4 years later, you've got the Monday Night Wars but I've been a wrestling fan since I was a kid. We're going back to the 80s here where, you had Adrian Adonis and Dino Bravo and the one man gang. You had Akeem, you had the Nasty Boys, you had the Hart Foundation. Yeah, you had the Road Warriors, you had the Hart Foundation, you had Demolition, and it was kind of cool for me because I'm sitting there going, damn, I remember the very first episode. Here we are at the 30th anniversary, and there's no secret in past years it had been a roller coaster ride, especially before Vince McMahon stepped down and was part of creative. But Triple H is doing, and Triple H cracked the joke that what this booking stuff is hard, and when he made that joke during their little skit, like I about fell out because he is finally trying to resurrect this product from its near death.
Oh, absolutely. So James, we're gonna go quickly to give you time for your good old Knox's Corner.
You got it, boss.
Men's Royal Rumble match. 30 participants. Whether it's a surprise entrant or one that we know is going to be in it, who do you have winning and facing the champion of his choice at WrestleMania? Despite Roman Reigns.
So despite reports of him not feeling like he's going to be ready, I believe Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson wins the Men's Royal Rumble match.
I believe that would be a great counter. I believe it's going to be Cody Rhodes. I believe what's going to end up happening is Roman Reigns is going to defend one of his 2 titles on each night of WrestleMania, and one of them will be against The Rock, one will be against Cody Rhodes.
You and I fully agree on that. I was getting ready to say the same thing. We fully agree.
So, Women's Royal Rumble.
This is a little tougher.
Because you look at your champions, one is Bianca Belair and one of them is Charlotte Flair. And I don't see either of them losing the title from now until WrestleMania. But I look at this and I say to myself, who's one person that really needs to establish themselves that does not have the title currently? Obviously it doesn't guarantee they're going to win the title at WrestleMania, but if there's somebody that at least has that main event caliber match, because this is who I look at. I look at Bayley. Bayley's the head of Damage Control, which is supposed to be the top heel female women's stable, in WWE. And yet, they have Dakota Kai and Io Sky have the tag team titles, the women's tag team titles. I think Bayley wins the Royal Rumble and then goes to WrestleMania and faces whichever wrestler she chooses, whether it be Bianca Belair or Charlotte Flair, and wins that women's championship, and then they all hold titles for most of the year.
So almost like a female version of the Bloodline. In that sense, I want to go off the board here just because we don't. We obviously there are a lot of unknowns here because we only know half of the group that's in the Royal Rumble because Alexa Bliss is fighting Bianca Belair at the Royal Rumble. Gosh, I would like to see. I'd love to see Becky Lynch, but honestly, I'm going off the board here, and I think Maurice makes her comeback. I know that's really far fetched, but again, I'm trying to take an outside of the box look at this because could you see Maurice going 1-on-1 with Charlotte Flair?
Oh man, you know what? And then if the Miz has a championship and then Maurice has one, there's the new it couple.
I also, it wouldn't surprise me to see Edge return at the Royal Rumble because I think Edge is far from done with.
I think this is last year, though.
I think it is too, but I think Edge is far from done with Finn Balor in them. I really do.
Okay. Well, folks, before we close up for the evening, it is time for yet another wonderful edition. I know you loved seeing his face all night long, and if you haven't, well, I'm sorry, but
tune in tomorrow. You'll see plenty of it.
you gotta tune in. You gotta tune in tomorrow, see more of it. You know, it could be worse. It could be like the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, where he was gone most of the week. So, all right, folks, it is now time for Knox's Corner here on Roundabout Sports. So, James, I'm going to step back, my friend, and I'm going to enjoy what you have on tap because I have no idea what the hell you're about to say.
That's what makes it
ready.
The Tiger's ready. The Tiger is Knox's dump button in a sense. Okay, so again, we started the show with Scott Rolen and his election into the Baseball Hall of Fame. So my argument is we already know that 2/3 of the MV3, being Albert Pujols and Scott Rolen, that are going to be Hall of Famers. My argument is that all three of them should be Hall of Famers. That's right, center fielder Jim Edmonds should be a Hall of Famer as well. Now, if you didn't watch the first part of the show, then I don't know where the hell you were at and what could possibly be better than watching myself and Jeremy. But just to run back some of the stats of Scott Rolen. His career WAR is 70.1. He had 316 home runs. He had a career, maybe I do need that Tiger. Had a 281 batting average. He drove in 1,287 RBIs in his career and scored over 1,200 runs. A slash line of 364, 490, and 855 with an OPS of 122. Now, an OPS plus, obviously the average is 100. So he was 22 points better than the average OPS player. His WAR, again, 70.1. It means he had 70 wins better than any replacement player that you could put in a lineup. Okay, so that's Scott Rolen's numbers. He's obviously a Hall of Famer now, and will go in this year with Fred McGriff. Let's look at Albert Pujols, who will be eligible in 4 years. His career WAR. This is one of those numbers that just kind of blows your mind. His career WAR was 101.6. Remind you that there's only 162 games in a major league season. He was 102 wins better than any replacement player that you could put in the lineup. 703 home runs, had a batting average career-wise of 296, 1,914 runs, over 2,000 RBIs. Slash line 374, 544, 918. His career OPS 145. Crazy, right? So that's 2/3 of the MV3. We're pretty sure that those two, and Pujols very well may be a unanimous first-time ballot Hall of Famer. He should be. Let's look at the pride of Fullerton, California, Jim Edmonds. Edmonds' career WAR was 60.4. Again, 60.4. That means he's 60 wins better than any replacement you could put in center field. But Jim Edmonds was special. He wasn't just about wins above replacement. It was also the fact that Jimmy Ballgame, as he was affectionately known by in St. Louis, played defense better than any center fielder we had ever seen in St. Louis. I mean, that's some high praise considering we saw guys like Curt Flood, who is extremely well-versed in playing center field. But Jim Edmonds, 60.4 WAR, 51 hits shy of 2,000. He had 393 home runs. He had a batting average of 284, which was better than Scott Rolen's. 1,251 runs. He drove in 1,101. Let's try this again. 1,199 RBIs. So one shy of 1,200. A slash line of 376, 527, a 903 career OPS, and a 132 OPS plus. But yet he is not in the Major League Hall of Fame or in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. A Cardinal Hall of Famer for sure, as Rolen already is and as Pujols will be. Who are we kidding ourselves? You're going to tell me that you can put in a center fielder like Tim Raines, but you can't put in Jim Edmonds. I know a lot of people in St. Louis have soured on Jim Edmonds because of his color analyst on Bally Sports Midwest. Not necessarily, well, It's all about him. And Jim Edmonds apparently was not that kind of player, though. He was very much team-oriented. And without him, Rolen and Pujols don't, maybe they aren't as good. But those three were the big three. They were the first big three in baseball. You could argue that they probably should have won another World Series, except for the Boston Red Sox and breaking the curse of the Bambino. But nonetheless, Edmonds' numbers are better than Scott Rolen's in terms of offensive production. They were both defensive wizards. Rolen at third, Edmonds in center, and Pujols at first. And they always tell you to build up the middle of your team. Think about this. Molina was behind the plate, Edmonds in center, and then at second base, there were times you had Fernando Vina. In 2006, when they won the World Series, they had Ronnie Belliard. He was a midseason acquisition that the Cardinals added to that team. And when Edmonds was injured, they struggled. Matter of fact, that team, they won 83 games rather, and barely made the playoffs. Then they took care of business. Obviously, the huge strikeout by Wainwright on Beltran, and then to get Brandon Idge to win the World Series. Rolen, Edmonds, Pujols, the MB3. And it could have been the MB3.5 if you wanted to add Molina in there, because even though Molina was in his first full year taking over from Mike Matheny, he was already established at that point. So there's absolutely no reason in the world, statistically, or even, off the field. Edmonds has gone through a little bit of turmoil lately, but when he was off the field as a player, he was big in the community when it came to children's hospitals, when it came to charities and donations and public appearances. Those three were inseparable. They're the reason the Cardinals won the World Series in 2006. So, for me, all three of them deserve to be in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. And that's Knox's Corner for this Wednesday evening.
You love to see it. Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in this evening on Roundabout Sports. And as always, we post up the National Alliance of Mental Illness helpline at 1-800-950-NAMI, 1-800-950-NAMI. And we also post here that the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, you just dial 988. It was a longer number, but now they've made it more convenient, lowered it to 988. It's open 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. And folks, understand that you are never alone in this world. There is always somebody out there that loves you. And it just takes that phone call, that text message, that just a little bit of reaching out to, help, to get that help in your most desperate time. And on top of that, you yourself could be the person that someone else needs. So never be afraid to reach out. Understand that we all are in this together. And I always enjoy doing this every single week. And thank you so much to my good old partner over there for I know that happy soul. And folks, we look forward to being back with you next week as we will be previewing the Super Bowl.
Wow.
I know we'll recap the championship games. We might do a special Super Bowl preview. We'll work on that. But please follow us on Facebook and on Twitter at Interstate 70 Sports Media. Follow us on our YouTube channel. You can find us on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and so many more places. Be sure to subscribe. But I always love ending with the Suicide Crisis Lifeline, because we've always, mental illness and advocacy is something that has not gotten as much attention as it should. And, we are all special in our own unique ways. And everybody deserves to be loved and cared about. So thank you all so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Roundabout Sports. I'm the maestro, Jeremy Karp. He's Hollywood James Knox. And remember, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading. Good night, everybody.